Sunroofs are great, but they can be problematic, especially when they do not function as designed. In this video, we shall be talking about water intrusion into the cabin. There are many causes of water getting into your cabin, but in this video specifically, we shall be talking about sunroof drainage systems. So as much as I'll be focused on the Infiniti FX50 to show my example, this is a problem that I like to call an Infiniti problem because it has happened to an Infiniti M45 that I owned. It's happened to an M56, that one specifically. It's happened to a Q45 that I had, and now the FX50. So I guess in that line, I better look at the Murano and make sure everything is working well with that one as well. So in this video, I shall show you, it's more of a story. I'll be telling you the problem, how I noticed the problem, what I did to troubleshoot and identify the problem, and eventually how I fixed the problem. So I hope this video will be helpful. If anything, just something to watch and listen to if you're bored. And I hope it will drive home something I've always said, that you should be vigilant with regards to your vehicle and keep your head on a swivel. Basically, be attentive. Use your sense of sight. Watch out for things. Listen out. Use your nose. Smell things. Identify odd smells. And 4, feel around. Touch things. If things don't feel correct, then go ahead and do something about it, all right? I hope the next 20 or so minutes will be helpful. Let's talk about an Infiniti problem. Water intrusion, water leaks into the cabin, and water damage if you don't address it or catch it in good time, right? So this is a 2009 Infiniti FX50. I'm talking about this because it's happened to quite a few different Infinitis that I've owned. I wouldn't say I've owned, I think we're getting close to 30, 40 of them, but it's happened to very few of them. But it seems like if you don't pay attention, water ends up making into your vehicle. So with this FX50, the way it caught it, I'd say big thanks to having the WeatherTech mats, this mat over here, because if I had something like a carpeted mat, I don't think I would have noticed. And we've had a few rains. We've had a little bit of a rainy season, yes, but nothing too crazy. Not a deluge by any means, but rain nevertheless. And I started noticing that on the passenger side, which no one really drives in, no one really occupies, I was collecting a puddle of water, a little bit of water, not too much, but considerable enough, you know. And not only that, I had recently started noticing a weirdly musty smell, and I've got a good nose, so smells that are odd, off smells, I usually respond to them pretty fast, or at least I can identify them pretty fast. But I couldn't see what was going on. So what I did at first was I dumped this out, you know, dabbed it with a towel, and then I tried my best to figure out where it was coming from. And this panel over here, this is the one that usually sits under the glove box. You know, you've got your puddle light, your puddle lamp. It's here. That's where the puddle lamp goes to. Here it is. This one is a glove box lamp. And I had noticed that this panel over here was really damp. So first time I just turned it this way and let it run for 2-3 days, and things stopped. But meanwhile, what I did is I came to the outside, poured as much water, because the water was dripping from the side and this wiring harness over here was kind of wet. So I was thinking that maybe water was coming in from the, you know, it's a weirdly, here's your setup. So let's get it. Your inlet to your in-cabin filter is pretty much this and that. You've got a few of these vents eventually lead in there, and I'm trying to find a way. Can I actually, yeah, I think I can actually open that up so that you guys can see what it looks like. The FX has got a very, very open design, and it's a little scary if you actually see it doing its, if you watch water running without the plastic stuff. As I said, I'll try. Okay, first thing, let's remove this one here. Set it down. Then this one here, you've got plastic clips. Yep, that's out. Set that to the side. push this down and pull this backwards. Easy peasy. Look at that. That's it. Whole thing is out. So watch this. And this tube right here, this tube goes to the rear glass washer. So this is how open the design is. And you do have the plastic piece, but really nothing else protecting it over here. And whenever you run water with a plastic, as you can imagine, it's not really waterproof. At best, all it does is direct water one way or another. And the same vents that let air in, let water drip down. So when water runs down, I'll go back to the car, by the way. It's kind of just talking about water in general. So when water runs down the FX, you'll see water go down here. It drips onto this wiring harness. And I was concerned about water going in here and going into the car, but I don't know how feasible that is. I remember learning this about working in industry. Electrical, any tubing, you know, metal, conduit, plastic, whatever it is, usually you don't like seal it tight because in case water gets in, you want it to drip down. So I was gonna check here. If it's not, if it seems like it's airtight or at least sealed at the bottom, I'll just poke a hole and let it drip down. Water was dripping onto this IPDM. Water was dripping onto this connection over here. This is just a pass through with a grommet. So at first I was concerned about water dripping in there, and you know, I wanted to know what was going on because we hadn't really received any considerable amount of rain, and I was concerned about what was going on. I mean, I'd washed this car before, taken it to the car wash, splashed a whole lot of water on the windshield, but still the wetness only seemed to be happening right now. So first day I did everything I could, reseated everything, made sure all the gaskets over there are seated properly. I ran like almost a whole bucket of water just down, and nothing made it into the car. Okay, so at that point it's baffling. Then I opened the sunroof just a little bit and then poured water in, and at that point I did not see any water dripping inside yet. But then, so I ignored it. Okay, I figured, hey, everything is fine. I don't really know what I've done, but I've touched enough things that I've made everything better. Well, not quite. I'd say 3 days later, I see water down there again. This time there was so much water, and I was getting a little concerned. What exactly is happening over here? So there was way more water here. Enough water that this bulb, this housing was actually collecting water inside it. But again, it's not entirely waterproof. If it lets water in, it can let water out. So I just turned it upside down, and actually I opened it, just shook it up and let it be. So I took that off to enable it to dry. I guess I'll deal with it later. Okay, I'll deal with it later. It's only got one way. That's what the problem was. Perfect. Okay, so I did the same thing, just turned this upside down. And then, as I said, thankfully, I'm not usually a fan of WeatherTechs, but I got these pretty cheap, and so I used them. And what I did is I just lifted this up, disconnected it from the hook down here, and lifted it up so it would catch any water that was coming in, that would drip down. And now here, let me get the flashlight. Funny thing about the routing is that here, this wiring harness seemed to collect quite a lot of water, and this wiring harness goes all the way into the engine bay. That's the one I was showing up there with the grommet, and the connection is over here. This is part of your dashboard and all that insulation stuff. So I ended up removing my A-pillar, right, this A-pillar cover, and went in there to the sunroof because I just wanted to make sure. I've had to deal with this before. I've dealt with Infiniti sunroof drain plugs before, or rather drain tubes before. I've gotten some that were kinked. I've gotten some that are not connected back there. I've gotten, what else, twisted. I've never really run into anything that's just clogged at the end. But what do you know? Mine was actually clogged because I took the tube out, had it over here, put a funnel with boiling hot water and sent it down. And there was barely any drip. Okay, so that I was like, okay, that's a problem. I know I'm sending in water, but where's the water going? So what do you know? That routing, as much as this tube goes to the front, and let me show you exactly where that is. Can we see it from here? Not quite. Let's pop the hood. You guys see that little off-white thing over there? Yeah, that is the end of the tube. That's where the drain tube comes to. So when you run, water in your sunroof, drains out, this is where it's supposed to drain out of. And then from there, you'd think it goes straight to the ground. No, it goes past this grommet over here, right here. So it's crazy, but water runs along. This thing is not exactly water, water resistant, waterproof. It's not waterproof. It is water resistant. No. What's the other way? It can take some water, but it's, like it can be rained on. Like a watch. I've forgotten. Waterproof or water resistant. It's one of the others. But so this thing is not entirely sealed against water, but it can handle some water. It can handle driving in rain. It can handle a car wash and things like that. And then another thing that was quite baffling for people to learn is that seals actually leak. Seals just prevent excessive or uncontrollable intrusion by stuff, or again, going out by stuff. A seal is just meant to control how much it does. Seals in themselves do leak. So whenever you're in the rain, water does actually go past. And then when water goes past there, it goes into these drain tubes, right? Here, and that one directs all the water down. And then you have the other ones back here. I'm not sure where it starts from, but then you have another one here and it goes down the C pillar, right? So that's what was happening. Water leaks, or at least the seals do leak, and that's why you have drain tubes. Drain tubes are supposed to send the water in a controllable manner. It wasn't happening. So let's go back in here. This is what I was trying to show. As much as you have a fairly straight path of water going down all the way to the cowl or to the engine bay, it actually stops. Let me see if I can find it. Wow, it's in there. Right there. Do you see that off-colored thing? The plastic, that yellow plastic in here is what becomes that plastic outside. And then the brownish tube is basically that is the sunroof drain tube. So what happens is that it collects over there. I had some gunk, and that gunk basically allowed, it's a stopper at the end of the drain, and then whatever water was being sent down here was just collecting over there. So now what happened is that it started backing out, and remember, as much as you've seen that, it's pretty close to it. I'd call it sealed, right? Remember the other thing I just said, that seals do leak. Seals just basically control or try to prevent uncontrolled flow into and out of systems. So it was leaking into the bulk area over there. All that insulation stuff, that's what it was leaking into. So, and this is usually an interesting thing about identifying leaks. You're usually told, well, clean the whole place up and then find the wettest spot above. Because at the bottom, if I were to follow a leak, I would have fixed this wiring harness right now. But then because I followed it up, I realized that somewhere here, this bulk of wiring harnesses was coming in contact with this part right here, this. And then all the water basically accumulating over there was coming down, and that's what I was trying to collect. Okay, so that's, I guess, the other pointer about leaks is that try to catch it at the highest point you can, which to me was that. And then the second thing, something else we usually say in the reliability field is sometimes to fix a problem, you kind of have to let it fail. It sounds a little counterintuitive, but really, to fix the problem, I had to let it leak. I had to cause a larger leak. I had to feed it like a few buckets of water to see exactly where it was leaking from. And I'm glad I did that, because See, I was getting a little bit of water over here, which was accumulating on this part, right over there, and then it was making it onto the mat, right? Great. However, when I started taking things apart, and you know, maybe all this time you're thinking, why is my glove box out? It wasn't just to look. It was to, well, it wasn't just out of curiosity, I guess. I wanted to find what are the places the water is going to, and I'm glad I did that, because there was just a little water coming here and through this and into the module, you know, not really into the module, because everything is curved, so it sinks from the lowest spot, and I'm glad about that design. But then quite a lot of water was going this way, and so I removed the carpet. Well, I'm gonna take this one out first. I removed the mat, then I loosened the carpet. And then when I loosened it, well, I obviously removed all the other trim pieces as well. When I removed that, I realized that under the carpet over there, this part right here was wet. And I'm like, okay, well, what in the world is going on? This still is a little damp right now. I did my best to dry it, but it might take some time. Thankfully, no mold yet. But so not only this part, right? This part was a little damp, but I had water collecting down here, and right now it's, yeah, I don't know what that black stuff is, but I'll tell you, I'll be washing my hands thoroughly after this. So something was going on, that I had so much water here, I could almost see it here all the way in the back, and my assumption is that it was, yeah, this place is not fully sealed, so if anything were to leak past, it did, you know. But I did what I could. And then I parked the car on an incline with the nose down, and I was hoping any water that might have easily gone back there was able to go back to the front, and I had towels soaking it up, and then that was supposed to help it. So it's not 100% dry. That's why things that have not been put back yet. But thankfully, this part right here is dry. I had been concerned about the carpet itself, because as much as this thing has got sides, you know, to help you in snow and I guess mud, this part right here is actually very low. And then whenever drive, you know, when you accelerate, things go backwards, right? The water would come in and just very lightly spill over this part over here. So WeatherTech, if you're watching, maybe you can make this part a little taller. Okay, but I think this video, I really have no idea why Infinitis or Nissans, I think the G37 guys also kind of complained about that, do experience these sunroof drain tube issues to this, you know, to this high of a frequency. It's not the worst. I've seen worse cars, but when I get to unplugging it, I guess I should explain how I solved my problem, right? So what I did is I got a coat hanger and came here and sent the wire hanger over there. This is it's a plug. It's basically a hole with an obstruction in front of it. It's not so that if you poured water, it's not gonna shoot just all the way straight. If you send, and now this is a catch, right? There's what's the positive, or at least what's the advantage of that? One, I guess water comes out in a controllable manner, right? You don't just splash it in here. But then the catch is that, the disadvantage is that if you have any solids that go into your sunroof drain area, they will come over there and then they get stuck. They'll get clogged. And that's what had happened to mine. I basically had a clog in the, you know, in the drain tube because of the design. I know some people who come, and let me try to get a little closer. Some people decide to break this thing off to prevent any issues from ever happening again, but I don't know. I'll think about it. It's just something quirky about the way this one right here is designed compared to the M's that I'm used to. Those have a slightly different design. But so that is what is going on over here. And this car came from Atlanta. It's been, I think they've been in Georgia for such a long time. So maybe the person never experienced what I'm experiencing, because this is not crazy rain. I mean, yes, it is April, May, June actually, but it's not a terrible spring. It's not the worst rains or rains we've ever had to experience. So it better handle it. And then the other thing I wanted. So I was saying that I'm not 100% sure where exactly the vehicle was parked and how it was stored and things like that, but I know that we don't get that much rain. I don't know what kind of rain the place down there got, but when I took out the tube and when I was unclogging the drain, the stuff that came out was like leaves that are way larger than what I would expect to make it through this seal over here. So maybe during normal use of the sunroof, opening the sunroof and then things just blowing over, the leaves ended up settling in the tracks and eventually over time ended up making it down here. Again, my vehicle's got 208,000 miles, so you can bet that something does happen over that much mileage over time. But so what I did, as I said, I unclogged that side. That definitely had a problem. I had tried blowing into the tube and it wasn't moving, and it came to do the driver's side as well. And on the driver's side, I did pretty much what you saw me do on that side, removing the plastic trim pieces and going all the way into the corner. I could see the little white thing, the drain. Unfortunately, over there, you've got the wiper linkage, and I believe the motor is in that corner as well. So I was like 4 or 5 inches away from it, but I was still able to send that wire hanger into the corner and just play around. Nothing really happened. As I said, this side wasn't bad. The side was draining and I haven't seen any problems. And maybe at some point, if there's enough interest, if anyone has watched this video all the way to the end to see this part, maybe in the future I can make a video talking about all the different drain points, the sunroof drain tubes and where they drain over here, and the two in the back. We'll talk about the AC drain in the car, the one that I usually refer to that as peeing right behind the front passenger wheel. And then not only that, we've got, since my car's got heated and cooled seats, you also have drains for those. Basically, whenever you cool air, condensation happens, so that water needs to go somewhere. Then you have some other spot over there. So, and this is that kind of video that I'm making. It's more of a vlog. It's not for those people who want quick 5 minutes and interest me, entertain me, and I'm out. It's if you want to see what my journey was, this is what you read. I guess it's exactly what you'd read in a blog. It's just in visual format, and it's something that's happened to my FX50 now. It happened to my M45, happened to the M56, that one right there. That's why the pieces are still in there. It's happened to the Q45, and it is something that has potential to turn disastrous if you don't catch it in time. However, it's one of those that I usually talk about, that if you're diligent and if you pay attention to your car, use your senses, eyes, just look, use sense of smell if you blessed enough to have a good nose, and 3, just touch things, and if see something damp, well, that's or if you catch something that is damp, that tells you you're not supposed to have so much water or dampness inside the vehicle. And I think in this video I'm going to give a huge shout out to the WeatherTech floor mats. I'm not going to say I'm 100% believer right now, but I certainly trust what they can do, because if I had any other kind of mat, I wouldn't have seen the puddle, not in the amount of time that I've seen it with the WeatherTech. So there's that. Otherwise, for now, I'm just going to leave this like this. I wanted to keep airing out. A lot of magic has happened in the past 2 or 3 days, and let's see what the weekend brings. So we'll give it another 2 days and we'll watch what happens.